I've had my WRX for 10,000 miles now, and in today's video, we're gonna take this thing for a drive and we're gonna talk about 10,000 miles of owning a 2022 WRX. I'm gonna talk about everything you need to know, all my experiences, what I've had to pay, costs, fixes, warranties, recalls, general ownership. If you're considering buying one, if you own one, I'm gonna talk about everything that you might need to know, might wanna know, some general experiences, things that might be coming, precursors, warnings. It's all gonna be in this video. Let's jump into the car. We're gonna take it for a drive and talk about it. I'll see you guys in the car. 10,000 miles, it's a crazy milestone. I know that sometimes these videos are incredibly helpful. Sometimes you guys are like, why are you making them? Like I said, we're just gonna go over absolutely everything. So the first thing that I wanna talk about, because I think this is the most impactful for most people, is cost. The cost of ownership. My biggest expense to date has been fuel, actually, gasoline. And I think that one of the interesting things about this car that's just been super surprising is the poor fuel economy. Now, I knew it kind of going into it that these cars don't make great gas mileage, but I can tell you right now, I'm making 22.1 miles to the gallon, and most of the driving I do is on the highway. But don't get me wrong, I drive the car a little spiritedly, but that's remarkably poor gas mileage. So I think my biggest cost to date has been fuel. My second largest cost after fuel has, I mean, if you're not, it's probably insurance, right? But oil changes haven't been that expensive. Obviously, it'd be aftermarket parts, but I've only done 3 oil changes in the 10,000 miles. I did one at 1,000 miles, and that's why, just because I wanted to just do a fresh oil change out of that new engine. Still highly recommend doing that. I've done actually all the oil changes at dealers, which is like a first for me, but it's mainly just because I've wanted to maintain a Carfax, and a lot of it's also just been ease of use, and you know, they're not that expensive. So, and I think my first 2 were free because I bought the car pretty locally, so I only had to pay for the third one, which was kind of nice too. But with that said, it's been basically parts, but fuel, parts, oil changes, that's basically everything I've spent money-wise. Recalls, I've had 1 recall done on the car. I think it was maybe specifically for the base models, I'm not entirely sure, but it was just like a software update, so it was a really easy thing to get through. The next thing I want to talk about is problems, because I think this is an interesting one. I've dealt with, let's say, 2.5 majorly substantial problems with this car. One of them has gone away. Actually, it went away specifically around when I took it in for a TSB, was I just had a sticky, I guess, gas cap. Sometimes the gas cap just would not open, and I know everyone was like, oh, it's because the car is not off, or it's in neutral, or whatever. No, like, the gas cap should have opened, and it just wasn't opening. But now it just opens every time, so I don't know what was going on. Combined with that half problem, certain gas stations, I swear, just don't know when to stop filling on this car. I don't know if it's the gas station, I don't know if it's the car, but like if I'm not watching, I can overfill the tank and have fuel flowing out of the tank if I'm not paying attention. The 2 more substantial problems that I've been facing is, 1, third gear has been giving me some problems. I don't know what's going on. It just likes to buck me out of third gear sometimes when I'm driving spiritedly. It's not a driver issue, I promise. It just happens every once in a while. I'm not entirely sure why. I will say, as miles have gone on the car, it happens less and less. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Hasn't happened in a couple months, which is actually crazy because it used to happen like once a month. So fingers crossed that just goes away. And then the one other thing is, I've got this weird thing that when I take a heavy turn, a heavy at low speeds, or even just like, even right now, you're not gonna hear it because I have a mic that filters out exterior noise, but something going on my right A pillar or B pillar on my passenger side, it's like creaking, which is very bizarre. Like, not like typical, like, ooh, my Subaru makes noise. This is like a, whoa, what is that? So I don't know what that is yet. We're gonna, in a video, I'm gonna do that live. We're gonna diagnose what the heck that is, hopefully, and figure that out. But we're gonna make a video on it, just trying to figure out how to diagnose it so you guys can also see something cool. Those have been my major problems. Nothing that I've taken it to Subaru about. In terms of day-to-day use and just like comfort and comfortability, you know, I've said this before, it's probably one of the most comfortable cars I've ever owned. You know, I've done a lot of driving in some nice cars, like especially like a nice, you know, a nice Audi. I've spent a lot of time in an A6 Prestige, and it's, you know, it's equivalent to that. And obviously this was a 2012 Audi, so it's like, you know, you're comparing like 12 years of automotive engineering, but this is a comfortable car if you want it to be. It really can be a comfortable car. And anyone that says that it's not, you know, hasn't driven on a lot of cars, just because it really is a comfortable car. I think most people would say, oh, it's not as nice. It is pretty nice, but in ways that are also negative. I know that you guys, if you watch the channel, one of my biggest gripes is, you know, this car isn't as fun to drive as the VA because it's improved in so many luxury aspects that it's taken away some of the rawness that for most people would have been discomfort, like the amount of road noise, feedback through the steering wheel, feedback through the car. It solved a lot of those problems, but things that I really enjoyed about the platform. So that would be one of the negatives. I think one of the other things that's interesting about this platform is the progression of tuning and parts. I think that's been actually a positive. I know I did a 1 year of ownership video in the past, and a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about is at some level fairly repetitive because I've had a good experience with this car, and there's not a whole lot to talk about because my experience has been pretty damn good. And I think one of the things that I think has changed pretty radically from that video in a very much improvement standpoint is the aftermarket has been developing. We've seen good results tuning. People, you know, obviously these transmissions and engines are failing, but you know, it's probably at the same rate as the VA, and we're just getting more data. So with more data, you know, I think you'll either have seen the video at this point or not. I can't remember the order in which these are coming out, but at some point, I guess I'll announce it here. I am planning on tuning this car before I let it go, so I can make some content around that for you guys. So obviously things have changed enough to make me want to tune the car. So that's been definitely a nice improvement with the car. And I think the biggest one that I wanted to talk about with this car specifically, in my 10,000 mile review, is how much 10,000 miles has changed in my opinion of the exterior of the car. And I think that's probably the most interesting thing to talk about here, is just that, you know, when this car first came out, I thought it was ugly. And I know that this is the classic Subaru story of a new Subaru comes out, everybody hates the designs, and they rag on it, and then it grows on people, and then people are excited about it. Well, unfortunately, I fall into that bucket where I think at this point, I like the way this car looks with a little bit of exterior modification more than I enjoyed the VA WRX. Now they're different. The VA has a nice wide stance and it's thick and chunky and in good ways. This one's a little bit more sleek and aerodynamic and a little bit more subtle. But as I've done little things to it, it definitely gives off more of the luxury vibe. And I will say, I get more compliments on this car with like the lip and some of the tinting and some of the accents from non-car people than I did with my last WRX, which I did arguably more to the exterior of it. I definitely get more compliments on this car by a significant portion, as in with the last WRX I got a couple compliments. With this WRX I've gotten like well over 100 since the ownership, which is, it feels good as a car person, you know. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure most of you guys are like, oh, he's vain, but if somebody compliments your car and you're driving it, you're gonna be like, oh, that feels good. Like it's positive reinforcement to either what you've done or just your choice in driving the car. So there's been lots of changes, and I know that a lot of you guys, like I've created a lot of like maybe negative videos, not negative, but very, let's say, constructive feedback videos in the past couple months, and a lot of you guys are like, oh, you hate the WRX platform. I don't. I'm critical because I love it, and I think that the last 10,000 miles have just been a reflection of that. I don't really see this car as something to enjoy that much on a day-to-day because I'm constantly like poking and prodding at it, whether I'm trying to design parts or I'm trying to find problems to create content for you guys, because ultimately I'm just trying to be a critical consumer of this vehicle, right? And I get a little sentimental when I have videos like this where I'm hitting a big milestone. 10,000 miles is no joke, so it's, you know, it's a very sentimental time with the vehicle. So I'm happy I got here. I appreciate the vehicle. It's been a great car. It really has, by a clear mile, been the most comfortable car that I've ever owned. You know, I mean, there's just like nothing that compares. What'll be really interesting is exactly how I feel after tuning it, and how much that changed and how much that gets affected, and just, you know, it'll be, I don't know, I'm curious to see what happens. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I know that these videos are hit and miss. Sometimes they're awesome for people. Sometimes they're like, that's exactly what I think about my car. You know, I make these videos for the folks that enjoy them, and maybe these aren't the funnest videos for me to make, but I make them because part of this channel is just an honest review of ownership, and coming from an engineer that just likes to dissect things and find problems, it's what my career and what my education is driven to, and that's why a lot of the videos on this channel are you know, constructive criticism, we'll say. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully you stick along with the journey with this car and see what's to come with all this tuning and everything I plan on doing it. I'll see you guys there.